You talk about David Warner chirping you. Chirping in cricket or sledging, or what are your views if you were to be coaching a young team, for example, on the idea of one cricketer verbally abusing another cricketer in order to, in that moment, potentially disrupt their thinking and get them out?
Yeah, I think it's such an overrated thinking that's part of our culture, that you think that if you say something to someone, it genuinely affects them badly. Because for me, I am exactly the opposite. The more people chirp me, the better it switches me on. To the point in my career where I had to actually go, how can I copy playing against Australia against other teams? Because against Australia, my statistics is ridiculously good, because I'm this fighter that fights against you, and you completely, the whole time you're on me and you're chirping me, and versus playing against Pakistan or New Zealand and it's nothing and it's quiet and my record is chalk and cheese. And I didn't know that initially. So I had to get to a point where I was like, okay, that's all right. I know that about myself now. So now how can I emulate that into my game plan to bring out that fighter in my character, because it brings the best me. And that's hard because you play a lot of cricket. You can't fake that all the time. So you gotta have one or two things that you think will help you. So a realistic example would be like, I would go, which guy in the opposition don't I like today? And I'm just gonna try and like zoom in on him and what he does, because maybe it irritates me, and then that gets me in the moment to fire up and be puffed up with my chest out to say, let's go, today we're playing against you. So it will always be very easy when I'm playing against David Warner, because I'll just be, this is the guy.
Yeah.
It's me and you today. And that little thing would be there. But if it's not there, it would be like, okay, what can I do today? So a great example, this IPL for me was like, okay, a big thing in me is my character, and I want to fight things, or I want to prove stuff to people. So Cricket South Africa, I'm going to prove the point to them, to say to them, this is how good I am. And I did a lot of work with you, which helped me a lot. But it would be like, I remember you saying to me, talk with your bat. That's the best currency that you can use. So that was such a powerful, in that fighter of me, is to try and pull something out of yourself to make sure that you can be the best version of yourself on that day. So that was a great practical thing that helped me a lot. And there's loads of those things that I'm sure we'll get through all of them, that I use to try and maximize my performance every time I play.
So that's interesting. So you're saying around sledging or verbal abuse, for you it really worked if someone abused you, and we know other players it doesn't necessarily work. So sledging is a blanket approach. Generally, it only works maybe 50 or 60% of the time, number one. And just the idea, so I always go back to, I was coached by Hilton Ackerman Senior when I was still playing sort of in sort of provincial under 23 cricket. And something he said to me just stuck with me still to this day. He said that in order to abuse someone on a cricket field, you need to earn the right to be able to abuse them. And when you've earned the right, you don't need to abuse. And for me, it says somebody about someone's character. So there's the funny or clever chirp, and there is the derogatory verbal abuse that, for example, David Warner is well known for. Do you condone if you captaining a team and people abusing opponents under your leadership?
It's a difficult situation because I've been there a few times. I think because it's not in my nature, what I would do is I would just say to the guy, that's not necessary. In a quiet way, away from the team, it's okay, you got him out, you don't have to. That's not us. That's not how we do things. And then, maybe the next time it'll still happen, but you'll have another word, and eventually it will fade away. So I think over time, you would see that if it's constant in your team's behavior or in the leader's behavior, that he's not doing that, the senior player is not doing it, it might jump out once or twice, but in general, it won't be there. I think it's when people see that it's okay, or it's allowed, they get away with it. And we use Warner as an example. That team, Clark was also like quite verbally chirpy. So he does it, then someone else does it. Even someone like Shane Watson, is quite soft at heart, but had this exterior chirpy side to him. I played against him lots of times, and I was like, who's this squeaky voice here from first slip, like abusing me though? Yeah. And it's always like him standing there. And then I played with a guy, and he was the nicest guy I think I've ever played with, and I've a great relationship with him now. But I think because it's in that team that he played with, that was the norm, and that was their way that they thought at an edge. And yes, of course, there is times when chirping can have an impact. So I think psychologically, if you understand people or personnel, you know what to say to get them uncomfortable. Interesting point. We were talking to someone in the IPL now, and he was saying people like Steve Smith, who's got a lot of things,
fidgety movements all the time. Yeah.
He was saying the best way to chirp someone like him is just to get a guy standing at short leg and just to count exactly what he does. So you just get a guy at short leg going, or you just say what he's doing. So you go hands, thighs, gloves, and you just repeat that the whole time. And that would be so uncomfortable for this personality to hear everything that he's doing. It will take him out of his comfort zone because he's doing all of these things for comfort, for routine, for feeling, for focus. But so that's a very good example of trying to unravel someone's focus to get them out of their thinking to not perform. So that's tactically more than anything. But I've never found that the personal direct sledging at someone's family. I mean, that's just me. But if there's someone in the past that gets them out of their space, then maybe there is for them. But I think in general, and I think the game now, I've experienced playing in the beginning, lots of chirping, lots of personal stuff, stump mics, doesn't even matter, to the point now where if you swear, you get a demerit point. So the game is definitely getting cleaner in that aspect. So I think as we move on, I think chirping will just become something of the past.
And I also do think it reflects on our character. If you're going to be someone who particularly engages in the verbal personal abuse, it says something about that person. And I mean, we don't have to mention now, but we know the players who are known to do that on the circuit. And if you were to think about it, what do you think about that person as a character? Would that be someone you would want to be involved in with business or something like that post-playing?
Yeah, and I think especially leadership, with character in your leadership that says a lot about a leader. So he sets the tone for the team, he sets the tone for the culture. So I think it's really important that the leader sees that as something that is important for the type of environment for the team. And for me, a great lesson in that was yourself and Gary in your introduction into the team back then, because, and I speak about this in my book, that you always get coached about cricket, or I always got coached about cricket. But you guys were the first guys that came in with the human element. And I know because it's a big part of Gary's character, is like the type of person that you are. And there was a lot of talking about that, the kind of person, the kind of environment, the way we treat each other. And that was so refreshing for me. And I think that almost like charged me up for what was coming next, for my future in leadership, this was something that I really identified with, this style of the human element, of the soft skills, not the hard skills. And that became an extremely big part of my leadership style, is soft skills. And that was really the first introduction to that. So, yeah, that was great.